Whether you're fresh off of a tutorial island, returning from a long break, or currently getting deep into RuneScape, the matter of fact is that RuneScape is a game with a lot of confusing systems and items that love to trap you and waste your time. Let's talk about some noob traps and how to avoid them in 2025, so whenever you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. The first noob trap is trying to pay for and maintain membership using bonds. Now don't get me wrong, bonds are a fantastic way to try membership for the very first time, but for most people, they're way too expensive for what they provide. Bonds will set you back nearly 130 million GP, which will bring your cost per day at 9 million GP for a day of membership. Now don't get me wrong, you can get back 130 mil in 2 weeks time, especially if your account is somewhere in the mid to high levels where you'll have access to more money making methods that are pretty good in terms of GP per hour. But trying to maintain that cost while doing everything else and just enjoying your playtime is a massive strain in terms of upkeep costs. And that's considering you have access to high level money making methods, because if you don't, chances are it's going to be even worse. You really don't want to be left playing a couple of hours per day, or let's say just 2 hours per day just to stay a member. You'd be way better off, if you can afford it of course, to pay for membership using IRL money. The next noob trap is upgrading your gear with a defensive focus over an offensive focus. You see, gearing in RuneScape is difficult, especially with all the different items, abilities, unlocks you need to think of. Offense is the best defense in RuneScape, and having additional damage is going to make your boss fights and slayer tasks significantly easier. Not only do you use less food, but DPS checks or skipping certain mechanics even will make it easier overall as well. Unfortunately, it isn't as black and white, but 90% of the time, buying an offensive upgrade is going to be better than buying a defensive upgrade, even if you're struggling at a boss. The exceptions, of course, are when the offensive upgrade is marginal and costs a lot of money, and the defense upgrade is significantly cheaper and allows you to, let's say, face tank more mechanics. The next noob trap is ignoring the combat triangle. Now, ever since the big combat updates around 2023, including an XP rebalance for a lot of monsters, the type of weaponry and weapon style you use matter more than ever. Fighting a monster without the correct type of weapon or type of spell, or even worse, the combat style, can seriously impact the amount of damage you deal. Reason being is your damage is dealt based on your accuracy. If you have 100% accuracy, you're dealing your maximum potential of damage output. If it's 90%, it's 10% less. Now, of course, there are going to be exceptions, but let's take this simple example here. I'm using a rune two-handed sword at Deadly Red Spiders. I have 67% accuracy, and I have the accuracy because while these are weak to melee weapons, they're not weak to my two-handed sword. They're weak to crush weapons, such as a rune mace. Notice how when I switch to a rune mace, I suddenly have 93% accuracy, and I'm dealing far more damage. And just like the previous tip, upgrading your weapons to a higher tier will also give you more accuracy and therefore provide you with more damage. Moral of the story, use the right type of weapon for the right combat method you're doing. There are exceptions where you use a certain style of weapon or a certain combat style on a method that may not be weak to those types of weapons, but because you have a high enough level or you have certain boosts, you're able to do that method with the wrong combat style. Now, it's no secret that Treasure Hunter is a part of RuneScape. Well, at least for now. Using your free keys from logging in or those obtained by completing daily challenges to your advantage is something players don't do enough of. You see, even if you aren't interested in the system, you can set it up or remember a couple of key things to make sure you don't waste your freebies. What I mean by wasting is skipping the wrong content, such as archaeology or necromancy with the XP lamps you obtain from Treasure Hunter, which will eventually require you to do things anyway at a lower level to unlock certain things further on the skills. An example is skipping your archaeology level and skipping the tutorial, and not having access to certain areas because you didn't do the mysteries. I've seen players do this, I've seen them comment this, I've seen it in game, it just happens too often. Another example of wasting your freebies is boosting fast skills like combat or Bibles by using your XP lamps and bonus XP on those skills. You see, 5,000 bonus XP for a method that gives you 2 million base XP per hour is going to be used up in no time and not going to get you that much further. However, using 5,000 bonus XP on a slow skill that's maybe only 50 or 60k per hour at your level is going to be far more impactful and save you more time. The next noob trap or mistake is, well, I'll just say it's optional. You see, some players like figuring out everything by themselves. And I understand that you don't always want to look up what the best way of getting something is, what the best method is, but getting into the habit of looking up guides or information on the official RuneScape wiki will save you so much time. Think about figuring out what items you need to get somewhere, what the best way is of getting somewhere fast, navigating difficult quests, figuring out the locations of some unfamiliar resources, understanding how items are connected, or figuring out what method you need to do to get the best XP per hour. Video guides are also a good alternative to the RuneScape wiki for a lot of these things. 1 hour of wikiing will account for tens of hours saved grinding the wrong thing or walking the wrong way, or perhaps even helping you to not forget a specific item. I know everyone wants to progress at their own rate, but you really don't want to be the guy that wasted tens of hours grinding the wrong resource just because you thought that was the way to go. The next noob trap is avoiding gear and equipment that either degrades or uses invention charges due to it being augmented. This is one of those things where I've caught way too many people saying this in the public RuneScape chat, and I'm surprised every single time. Yes, you don't necessarily need to use over-leveled gear for some methods, but the majority of the time, if you're doing something combat related or skilling related, having that augmented equipment, those passive buffs, far outweigh the cost that these items have, or the upkeep they have. Now, if you're interested in a video about saving money, I also cover that you can save money with the invention skill, which I'll link down in the description below. But really, guys, if you have access to invention, use those perks to your advantage. The final tip I have is a general tip, and this is something I suggest in my beginner guides or returning player guides, and it's something you should do as soon as possible. It's setting up a clear and defined customized UI or interface. The RuneScape interface is highly customizable, and having a clear defined interface fit for your needs is going to reduce cognitive load, make it more efficient, and allow you to focus on the things you need to focus on, whether that's skilling or bossing. Thankfully, Jagex added interface sharing as a feature a couple of months ago, which allows you to easily load and basically nick anyone's interface. Alternatively, and this is something you should probably do to kind of learn what is out there and what you can find in the settings, build your own interface. I'll leave a guide for exactly that down in the description below. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it interesting, and be sure to let me know your new traps or tips for players down in the comments below. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.